4, 3, 2, 1.
In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Councillor Gramlich.
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Councillor Hughes.
I move to accept the committee of the whole meeting minutes from April 8th, 2025 as presented.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Okay, so we've had a bit of a shuffle of things to try and get everyone out in order to watch get everyone out to watch the game on time. So we are starting a bit early. We're going to start with our public hearings after the advertised time after 6, and we're going to start with our reports and new business. So Roland, you're up first.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. The report before you tonight is the year-to-date actual operating results for the period of January 1st to March 31st. I'm not going to go through the entire report. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll just kind of touch on the highlights. For revenues, total revenues recorded as of March 31st, 2025 represent approximately 10% of the annual budget. While this may appear low at first glance, it is typical for this point in the fiscal year due to the timing of property tax billing and certain government transfers. At this time, there are no concerns with the position in revenue. Moving on to expenses, as of March 31st, 2025, the town has incurred approximately 26% of its total annual expense budgeted. And of that, there's really no concerns on the expense side. Overall, for the town's first quarter financial performance, revenue generation is progressing accordingly, according to seasonal patterns, with no variances of concern. Expenses are tracking well overall, with the exception of an unanticipated overage in administrative wages. We will be monitoring this and address through forecasting in future periods. Other than that, I have no real significant variance risks or any concerns for the first quarter of the year.
Councillor Adams.
Why the overage?
Just due to staffing issues.
Anything further? Councillor Adams.
No, new buttons. Move that council accept the Q1 2025 operating budget results for the period January 1st to March 31st, 2025 as information.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. Kate, we'll move to Cush, 6th Street Southeast water main replacement.
Sorry. The purpose of this report is to provide our recommendation to council for 6th Street Southeast water main replacement project. This project addresses the replacement of aging water main on 6th Street Southeast between 10 Ave Southeast and 11 Ave Southeast. The existing ductile iron line installed in or before 73 is well beyond its expected service life and has experienced repeated failures in recent years. During recent repairs, exposed sections of the pipe were found to be in poor condition and are expected to fail again if not replaced. Each break results in service disruptions for nearby homes and increased operational time and repair costs. Replacing this section now will help prevent further disruption and reduce ongoing maintenance demands. The approximate length of replacement is 320 meters. The water master plan does not identify any water flow or fire flow deficiencies, eliminating the need for upsizing the water line in this area. The existing ductile iron line will be replaced with 8-inch PVC DR18 line as per the current infrastructure standards. During 2025 budget discussions, budget acquisition of 1.5 million was approved for this project based on construction cost estimate. Administration concluded the bidding process at 2 p.m. on April 17th. 5 bids were received upon closing with the following bid amounts. GS Construction, $1,085,300 even. E-Construction Limited provided a bid of $1,121,234.72. Firma Contracting Incorporated provided bid of $1,241,064.07. United Utilities Limited provided a bid of $1,376,876.60. Newgen Project provided a bid of $1,624,300. All submitted bids were found to be compliant with respect to mandatory requirements. Bid evaluation was completed based on following criteria as listed in bid documents. Schedule was weighted 10%. Past performance of similar project was weighted 30%. Key team members was weighted 20%, and price was weighted 40%. Based on our evaluation, the highest scoring bid was submitted by GS Construction and is recommended for construction contract award. GS Construction has been established since 1974, specializing in underground infrastructure and operates out of Aitchison, Alberta. The company has previously worked in town during infrastructure recovery project following 2011 wildfires and successfully completed underground infrastructure replacement projects on 5th Street Southeast and 7th Street Northeast. For this project, GS Construction has proposed to utilize E-Construction as subcontractor. As a contractor, E-Construction has successfully completed 9th Street waterline replacement and 5th Street Northeast road rehabilitation project last year. Based on previous project experience, GS Construction along with E-Construction have done reputable work and has capacity to complete the scope of work defined in the bid documents. Council may choose to proceed with the proposed project by awarding the contract to the recommended contractor or choose not to proceed with the proposed project at the time. Anticipated project costs are expected to be in the range of $1,328,780 before GST, which includes 10% construction contingency and cost for engineering and material testing. Approved budget of $1.5 million is provided from water and sewer reserves for completing this project in 2025. Any surplus budget post-project completion will be allocated back to the funding reserves. All the proposed construction work will be completed as per our infrastructure standards. Once the contract is awarded, a notification letter will be sent out to adjacent residential homeowners notifying of the construction timelines and other details as necessary. Timely notification will also be released through our website, social media, and warrant alerts. The timelines of full road closures, if any, will be shared with emergency services and school division in advance to plan their detours as necessary. Administration recommends awarding the construction contract for 6th Street Southeast water main replacement project to GS Construction in the amount of $1,085,300, excluding GST.
Counselor Adams.
Move that council awards construction contract for 6th Street Southeast Water Main Replacement Project to GS Construction, GS Holdings Company Limited, in the amount of $1,085,300, excluding GST.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried.
Okay, next, we have 14th Street Southeast Road Rehab Project Contract Award. So the purpose of this report is to provide award recommendation to council for that project. The project focuses on completing road rehab work on 14th Ave Southeast between 5th Street Southeast and 12th Street Southeast. This stretch of road is classified as local residential with original underground dating back in 70s. The street suffered significant road-based failure over the years since its original construction. There is no record of major road rehab work on this section of road since the original build. However, considerable amount of sidewalk and asphalt patching has been done in the last few years. This section of road has been identified for 2018 street rehab, but was downgraded to focus on other road sections based on traffic utilization. The recently completed 2023 road assessment identified this stretch as priority, citing a poor pavement condition index as per ASTM standard D6433. The project includes reconstruction of asphalt road, including base repairs and sidewalk replacement, waterline replacement on 11 A Street and 13 Ave Southeast will be included, along with the spot repairs on existing sanitary main, storm main, manholes, and catch basins. Capital budget acquisition of 3.2 million was approved for this project. We concluded the bidding process at 2 p.m. on April 24th. 4 bids were received upon closing. Rural Concrete provided a bid of $1,865,763.40. E-Construction Limited provided a bid of $2,034,779.57. Signature West LLB Incorporated provided a bid of $2,089,934. Canelson Sand and Gravel provided a bid of $2,165,391.33. All submitted bids were found to be compliant in nature with respect to mandatory requirements. And the evaluation was based on 10% on schedule, 30% on past performance on similar projects, 20% on key team members, and 40% on price. Based on our evaluation, highest scoring bid was submitted by Rural Concrete and is recommended for construction award. Rural Concrete has been established as construction company since '89. They have an operating office in Slave Lake since last few years. As a general contractor, they have completed various rehabilitation projects with a similar size and scope to 14th Ave Southeast within last 5 years. These projects have been located in northwestern Alberta, including Loon River, Slave Lake, Berwyn, Peace River, and Manning. For this project, Rural Concrete has proposed to utilize ENC horizontal directional drilling as a subcontractor. That subcontractor has successfully completed underground work scope on 9th Street Southeast waterline replacement and 5th Street Northeast road rehab project last year. As a team together, they have a capacity to complete the scope of work as defined in the bid documents. Again, council may choose to proceed with the proposed project by awarding the contract to the recommended contractor or choose not to proceed with the proposed project at this time. With 10% contingency, engineering and material testing, total anticipated project costs are expected to be $2,468,624.74 before GST. Approved budget of 3.2 million was provided from water and sewer reserves, road reserves, and MSI for completing this project in 2025. Surplus budget post project completion will be allocated back to the funding reserves. Again, all proposed construction will be carried as per our infrastructure standard, with the exception of road width, due to conflict with existing infrastructure like ADCO light standards, utility pedestals, catch basin infrastructure, etc. This means that width of the road will be maintained at 9.7 meter as opposed to development standard of 11 meters. The project cost would have been significantly higher if relocation of such existing infrastructure was included. Once the contract is awarded, again, notification letter will be sent out to adjacent homeowners, notifying of timelines and other details. Notification will be released on our website, social media, and Voyant as well. And full road closure details will be shared with emergency services and school division. Administration recommends awarding the construction contract for 14th Ave Southeast Road Rehab Project to Rural Concrete Limited in the amount of $1,856,763.40, excluding GST.
Councillor Choba.
I'd like to move that council awards the construction contract for 17th Ave Southeast Road Rehabilitation Project to Rural Concrete Limited in the amount of $1,856,763.40, excluding GST.
Friendly amendment is 14th Ave.
Yes. 14th Ave, sorry.
No, it's okay. Motion on the floor. Do we have any further discussion or question, council? Councillor Adams.
Just a quick one. As far as infrastructure under the road, it was just the water line on the one side we're dealing with, nothing down the west side?
So water line, so yeah, we are doing on the east end. That's where the water line, we have a history of multiple breaks.
Yeah.
Almost a dozen break in the last 10 years. And the rest of the stretch is in good shape, knock on wood. We don't have any issues, so we are hoping to keep it as it is. There
Are
is
you
no,
guys doing any testing on that while you got everything removed or not?
we will do our general like flushing and stuff just to verify if water is not coming out dirty and stuff. So we will do that, and we will do CCTV analysis of storm main and sanitary main just to confirm their condition. If any deficiency is found, we will try to resolve that before new payment is installed.
Thank you.
Anything further? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks,
you.
Kush.
Thank you.
Next report is the election officer appointment, and that's to you, Alex.
Yep, so thank you, Mayor and Council. The purpose of the report is to amend the election bylaw number and to formally appoint the returning officer and deputy returning officer for the 2025 general election taking place on October 20th, 2025. So a bit of a background on the election bylaw number. Recently administration noticed a duplication of the bylaw number 19-2024. In order to change the bylaw number, council must give all 3 readings to this bylaw. In the last quarter of 2024, Town of Slave Lake Administration worked with Brownlee LLP to revise our elections bylaw. The revision was due to a change in election process, and this was an opportunity to implement a bylaw that could govern future elections, meaning the bylaw in theory should have to be updated less frequently. So the amendment is administration is requesting council to amend the bylaw 19-2024 to 05-2025. In order to rectify number duplication, no other amendments to the bylaw are needed, and there are no requests from administration to adjust the bylaw. The returning officer appointments, administration has been attending election seminars and completing information modules as they are released. In recent discussions with Brownlee on clarifications on deputy officer requirements for appointments, it has been clarified that the Town of Slave Lake Council must formally appoint a returning officer and deputy returning officer by name. Although the Local Authorities Election Act states that the appointment of returning officer and substitute returning officer, an elected authority may, by resolution, appoint a returning officer for the process of conducting elections. In the Town of Slave Lake bylaw, it states the council shall. So that's one of the changes that we wanted to make on the bylaw, meaning that our bylaw is held to a different standard. It is important to note that this also clarified that if municipalities are to make formal returning officer appointments, that is completed before June 30th of the general election year. So we have a couple of options to amend the bylaw number or not to. And for the returning officer appointments, to formally appoint Ashley Lindberg as the returning officer for the October 2025 general election, and to formally appoint Josh Engen as the deputy returning officer for the 2025 general election. Resource impacts: by formally appointing an internal returning officer and deputy officer, it will save election costs for personnel. No nomination packages are affected by the formal appointment of the election officers, nor is there any effect from the bylaw number amendment. So communication strategy, returning officer contacts will be located in the Town of Slave Lake website. And our recommendation to council is to amend the bylaw number by giving the bylaw all 3 readings. And for the returning officer appointments, to formally appoint Ashley Lindberg as returning officer for the 2025 general election, and to formally appoint Josh Engen as the deputy returning officer for the October 2025 general election.
Councillor Gramlich,
We'll move to give bylaw number 05-2025 first reading.
further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Choba,
Move to give bylaw numbers 05-2025 second reading.
further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? Councillor Hughes,
I move to give bylaw number 05-2025 unanimous consent for 3rd reading.
further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? Councillor Adams,
Run the whole gambit.
we're going. We're going
Move to
through.
give bylaw number 05-2025 third reading.
Further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Choba,
I move to formally appoint Ashley Lindberg as returning officer for the October 2025 general election.
okay. Call to question, those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Gramlich,
I move to formally appoint Josh Engen as deputy returning officer for the October 2025 general election.
further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried. Okay. So we are going to, are we able to get the delegation for the Grand Prairie Regional Hospital on?
Yep. Just arrived, yep.
Oh, perfect.
So if you give us 2 seconds, we'll just get them set up.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
why don't, we can take a few minute break and then take their time and then get ready. We can, yeah, just pause for a few minutes so that they can get set up.
Perfect.
Floor is yours if you want to introduce yourself.
Of course, absolutely. My name is Dale Bond, and I'm here on behalf of the Grand Prairie Regional Hospital Foundation as the director of the Ken Sargent House. I'm sure everyone in this room has had a family member or maybe themselves who have fallen ill or had a serious injury and had to leave your town to access advanced medical care in maybe Edmonton or Grand Prairie. The stress and anxiety families can face when they have to leave their home community can be unimaginable. The mission of the Ken Sargent House is to care for patients and their families who have to access care in Grand Prairie. Let's go. Yep. A little bit about the history of the project. So the Ken Sargent House is a long time in the making. About 10 years ago, the Rotary Clubs of Grand Prairie created a wellness society with members from each of the clubs, and their goal was to build a supportive accommodation for anyone accessing medical care in Grand Prairie, along with their support systems. In 2023, the Grand Prairie Regional Hospital Foundation joined that partnership as the operating partner and the fundraising partner. And in 2024, a 1-acre lot was secured just kind of west of the Grand Prairie Regional Hospital for the construction of the Ken Sargent House. And in about 3 to 4 weeks' time, we will be going into the ground for this project. So the name Ken Sargent, that may be familiar to you. If not, Ken Sargent is a local philanthropist and entrepreneur in Grand Prairie who supports many different causes. And he donated a $2 million gift to be endowed to help sustain future operations of the Ken Sargent House. So what is the Ken Sargent House? Basically, if you find it in your home, you're going to find it at the Ken Sargent House. We have just over 16,000 square feet of living space. Within that, we will have 21 private bedrooms. 2 of those will be fully accessible. 10 of them will have 2 beds and 9 of them will have 1 bed. There will be common living areas such as a kitchen, laundry, places to visit, social areas, a kids play area, a fitness area, and all of this will be within walking distance to the Grand Prairie Regional Hospital. So why the Ken Sargent House? As you may know, Grand Prairie serves a very large region, just under 500,000 people. And we are the Trauma and Cancer Center of the North. Being the Cancer Center of the North, we have 2 of Alberta's 5 radiation vaults in Grand Prairie. We see about 8,000 surgeries a year in our 11 operating theaters. We see a lot of traumas that come in. We have an emergency room that sees about 150 patients a day. We have mental health services for youth, adult, and geriatric, an intensive care unit, a pediatric unit, and our neonatal intensive care unit is a level 2, meaning we can see babies as young as 32 weeks and we can care for them in Grand Prairie. So with the large size of our region, as well as the services being offered at the Grand Prairie Regional Hospital and in Grand Prairie at the Queen Elizabeth Ambulatory Care Center with our Kidney Care Center, this need was identified. So where are we at? Where are we going? Our goal is to raise $12 million to complete our build. We are about halfway there. We were gifted $2 million from Ken Sargent, and as I mentioned, that has been endowed and will be used to support ongoing operations. We were gifted $4 million from the Rotary Clubs of Grand Prairie, and in March, we started approaching all the municipalities seeking support. We do know that if we receive $15 for every resident within our region, we would meet that goal. So we are just asking the town of Slave Lake to consider a gift to the Ken Sargent House, and we do understand that $15 a resident may not be a realistic ask for everywhere we go, so any gift would be appreciated. So what kind of impact will the Ken Sargent House have on families and their support systems, on patients and their support systems? The goal for the house is to have low-cost accommodation. So we are modeling it after what's called Joanna's House in Kelowna. We anticipate charging $20 a night for the stay. We know that we're going to have families heal better when they're together. So we're going to have improved family well-being, enhanced patient recovery, an opportunity to strengthen connections with other families going through similar journeys, a sense of normalcy, convenience with its location close to the hospital, an opportunity to create positive memories. So although we're going through some challenging times, there's still that opportunity to find joy and create those memories in those troublesome days, and the opportunity to strengthen our region and our communities as a whole. We will be relying heavily on volunteers to help support the project as well. So I'm just going to share a little video of my own personal story, living in supportive accommodation throughout my own healthcare journey with my family. And I think this might be the old video based on what I'm seeing in the slideshow. So we'll give it a shot, but it might lose volume for a bit or go quiet for a bit. Okay. All right. So I'll just share a little bit. In 2011, my daughter became very ill, and we were medevaced out of Grand Prairie and brought to the Stollery Children's Hospital in Edmonton. And during that, she went into complete cardiac and respiratory arrest and ended up on life support. So for about 6 months, we had to live in Edmonton. During that time, she became a quadruple amputee and so was hospitalized for quite some time as she received treatment. And eventually she came out of the hospital and ended up staying in Edmonton for another 4 months, but needed to be an outpatient. So it was at that time that our family accessed supportive accommodations living in at Ronald McDonald House, actually. And the impact it had on my family, both financially, emotionally, psychologically, was beyond what I can explain. So I expected when I walked in that I would walk into a place that was solemn and sad and just dark. But what I walked into was a support system and a built-in family that over time just became those people that you could rely on and trust and you could be vulnerable with. And sometimes it's hard to be that way with our own families and our own support systems outside of the medical world. So it was an opportunity to just be real and be raw. And the support we had was like no other. So based on my own personal history and what we've been through when this project became a reality, I was really excited to be a part of that. So I just want to share a little piece of that and hope that you guys will consider supporting the project. Will it go to the next one or no? I think we can all agree that illness is a great equalizer. It doesn't matter what resources you have. It doesn't matter how much money you have or where you live or what your family structure is. Illness or injury can hit anyone at any time. And therefore, I do consider it to be the great equalizer. And with that, I am open to any questions you may have.
Questions from council? Councilor Adams.
Reaching in the wrong direction. I get, my question revolves around your service area. You're saying you're responsible for anything north of where? Or is it just more of a radius?
So they just changed it to health core. So we were zone 9, I believe, for AHS, and they've just recently changed it to corridors. So within our corridor, we kind of end at the M. We have part of the MD of Lesser Slave River, and then we have Slave Lake up to like Big Lakes County, all the way up to Grand Prairie, and then we go up north to Mackenzie County, and then we go. Oh goodness, I'm trying to think of everywhere I've been. So it's quite a large zone, but I can't exactly say, but I do know that like going towards Edmonton, we go up to Swan Hills, Fox Creek, but White Court is no longer in our zone. So, and Edson used to be, and they are no longer in our zone.
Okay. And then I guess my other part of the question, you're asking for funding in the form of a one-time shot, or is this something you're looking for on an ongoing basis?
So at this time, we're just in our capital campaign. So we are looking for funding for our build. And we'd be open to any other opportunities. They may be to partnership as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Hughes.
Yeah, I was just gonna tack on to what Councillor Adams was asking about. It's important to note here in terms of the zones that that's a new thing with Recovery Alberta, primary care, but also that we are being told within this zone that anyone in our area with major medical issues will be taken to Grand Prairie instead of Edmonton, right? That's how you take that, right, Councillor Chova? Yeah, so that's kind of the latest update, just coming from a tri-council health perspective for the rest of council.
But it's further away.
I know.
That is how the new system is going to be structured in terms of the zone. So I just wanted to highlight that fact as well.
I know, it doesn't always make
Go for
sense. I hear you.
Well, thank you so much. We
Yeah.
really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gramlich.
I'll make a motion to accept the report as information.
Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor. And that is carried.
And then
We are gonna go, the delegation and public hearing need to wait a brief moment, so we are going to move into question period. Counselor Hughes.
I had a little question for you, Alex. Hopefully you can help me with. I was just wondering on road resurfacing on Sixth Avenue by the three-way stop there where we had a water line break, I think. Just curious if you had an update on, is that kind of on the up and coming list?
Yeah, actually, I spoke to Kush today about it. So our contractor is just getting prepared to fire up the paving plant. We were advised it was probably going to be early next week, but it sounds like it might be earlier than that.
Oh, awesome.
Town crews did go today and fill it in again. They're
Yeah.
trying to get it packed down as best they can before the pavers do show up. But yes, it is, it's been an ongoing concern of mine as well. So I did reach out to operations through Kush today and got an update. So it should, if not by the end of the week, early next week, if everything goes according to plan.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I saw some fresh gravel today, so I thought that was a good sign and thought I would maybe just ask while I was here. So thank you for that.
Any further questions? Okay, I'll move into State of the Lake. I have a few things. So the Rotary Club is having their annual shredding event. It is May 11th, which is, it's May 10th, sorry, it's May 10th on Saturday. And it is from 9 to 1. It'll be in the Northern Star Hotel parking lot. It is $10 a banker's box. They accept cash, credit, debit, or e-transfer. So again, that's on Saturday from 9 to 1 in the Northern Star parking lot. The Canyon Creek Arena Rec Association is having a Mother's Day brunch on the Sunday. It is free. It is from 10 to 12. We also have on this Thursday from 11 to 1, we have the emergency responder groups, which includes forestry, RCMP, AHS, ATCO, and others for a barbecue to celebrate Emergency Preparedness Week. So you can come grab a burger and meet your local firefighters and learn about how you and your family can stay prepared for any emergency. So there's a thank you to our sponsor ATCO for supporting this event, and then everyone can come out to enjoy the barbecue, which will be in the Town of Slave Lake office courtyard. So again, that's Thursday from 11 to 1. Yes.
We're gonna have a fire truck, barbecue truck there?
No, you're not. Some small issues with the truck itself, but there will be barbecues there.
So there will be a barbecue, might not be on the fire truck, but there will be a barbecue. And that's in the front office there of the Town of Slave Lake courtyard, and that is free. Another note is that there's an extreme fire hazard for our region. The Town of Slave Lake has put on its own fire restriction. Safe campfires are allowed, so those are campfires that are in their own designated fire pit, fire ring. So there is, and also our forest area around us also has a ban on campfires that aren't within designated camp spots and in the designated camping rings. So no open fires in any of the forest areas. So just a heads up on that. Is there anything else from Council for State of the Lake? Okay, well, I will motion for a break until 6, and then we'll get started with our public hearings. All those in favor? And we're gonna vote for that. Thank you. That is carried.
Yes, sir.
This-
Oh, yeah.
You would like to discuss it further? Welcome back. So we're going to start with our public hearings. So the public hearing is open and held pursuant to sections 216.4, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw 10, 2025 is to amend the land use bylaw 22, 2007 by adding section 115A, recreation facility and resort district RR2. Notice of the hearing was given in writing to the applicant and the assessed landowner or landowners and the planning and development officer. Notice of the hearing was advertised on the town's website from April 16th, 2025 to May 6th, 2025. Any presentations are to be brief and to the point. The order for hearing for presentations will be the planning and development officer, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard, all persons giving presentations or to state their name and address. Council can ask questions after each presentation and allow for rebuttal from any person having given presentations. And with that, we will start with Joanna.
Good evening, your worship and council. So the purpose of this report is for council to hold the required public hearing for bylaw 10, 2025. The name of the applicant is Big Fish Bay. They are also the landowner, sort of hearing back sheet. The legal land description is for Southwest 173-6 west to the 5th, and their application is to amend the land use bylaw number 22, 2007 by adding section 115A, recreation facility and resort district, RR2.
Fix it.
Yeah, it's giving.
It's giving a bit of feedback on that mic.
In accordance with section 692(1) of the Municipal Government Act, Town Council must give bylaw 10, 2025 first reading and hold the required public hearing prior to passing a resolution. First reading was given on April 15th, 2025, and the public hearing was scheduled for May 6th, 2025. The owners of Big Fish Bay have purchased the lands adjacent to the current town-owned lands that they lease. They wish to expand their recreational resort into these new lands, with cabins being a main focal point of the business. They're also proposing a new office, a recreational facility, fitness facility for users of the resort, and store location on the new site. For discussion, the owners of Big Fish Bay have submitted an application to amend the land use bylaw by adding a new section 115A, recreation facility and resort district, RR2. This amendment is intended to support cabin development plans aligned with their long-term business objectives. The subject lands are currently zoned recreation facility and resort district, RR1, and under the existing RR1 regulations, cabin development is limited by a ratio tied to the number of campsite stalls. Big Fish Bay has reached the maximum allowable cabin density within their leased area unless additional campground stalls are constructed. The RR1 district currently permits a maximum of 10% of the total campsite and cabin count to be designated as rental cabins, with the remaining 90% required to be RV tent sites. Presently, Big Fish Bay has constructed 52 cabins in addition to one pre-existing 3-unit sleeper and 3 other existing cabins for a total of 58 cabin units. With 585 campsites on the parcel, this meets the maximum density allowed under the current district regulations. The proposed RR2 district introduces several changes designed to facilitate additional development while addressing operational needs. A summary of the key changes is provided below. For full details, please refer to the attached draft regulations of the RR2 district. So there's the addition of discretionary uses, including a convenience store, liquor store, outdoor recreation facility, example, the pool, recreation establishment, minor, and a recreation vehicle park. Correction to a minimum site area, which was a typo error in the RR1 district, has been corrected. Clarification on setbacks. Additional notes have been added to provide clear guidance within those setbacks. Increased maximum height, building height from 10 meters to 11 meters, which is up 36 feet. Increased cabin density. The allowable density of cabins per hectare has been raised. Updated wording clarifies that density need not be evenly distributed across the site, enabling clustered cabin development, which also currently happens at Big Fish Bay as is. Road standards, minimum road widths have been addressed, with standards introduced based on road types. Year-round operational considerations, new regulations account for snow storage, garbage collection, bus access, and emergency vehicle movement to support long-term leases and year-round use for the cabins. Buffer requirements, a 10-meter landscaped buffer strip will be required around the perimeter of the campground. Outdoor storage screening, mandatory screening for all outdoor storage areas. Accessory structures, regulations have been added to govern the placement and design of accessory structures within the campground. Fencing and storage, new provisions have been included regarding fencing and storage practices within the campground. So the options are you could give, sorry, we'll go to that later. The notice of the public hearing was advertised on the town's website and social media for a period of 3 weeks. The department received 1 inquiry from the manager of the Slave Lake Airport asking for information on the proposed amendment. Once provided with details, he indicated he was in favor of the amendments and the possible future development of the site. To date, no other communications have been received by the department either for or against the proposed changes. Initially, the planning department had reservations about allowing increased cabin density due to potential impacts on the community, including land use intensity, infrastructure strain, and long-term implications. These concerns were rooted in a need to safeguard the town and its residents from unintended consequences that can arise from unregulated or poorly planned resort development, such as the gradual evolution of seasonal resort to a de facto residential community without the necessary infrastructure or services in place to serve that community. Importantly, the town has no mechanism to regulate full-time occupancy of cabins within a resort district, and as such, intensity of use must be managed proactively through zoning regulations and site planning tools. The new RR2 regulations aim to do that. The RR2 regulations were developed through a collaborative effort between the planning department and the landowner. They reflect a careful balance between supporting economic development and maintaining high standards of planning and community well-being. And key provisions include additional discretionary uses, cabin density increase, year-round use considerations, design aesthetics, as mentioned previously in this report. The planning department's approach reflects core principles of sound land use planning, addressing current and future development challenges, weighing the interests of individual landowners against collective interests of the community, mitigating external impacts of development, considering both built-in natural environments, planning for evolving demographics and long-term land use changes, promoting safety, accessibility, and economic opportunity, and recognizing that emerging trends within planning and development and land use, and this is just an example, such as EV infrastructure or telecommunication upgrades. The increased cabin capacity could help address the current shortage of short-term accommodations in the community, which is a known issue affecting both tourism and temporary workers. Importantly, this development is not expected to displace long-term housing options, but rather complement them by filling a specific gap in the market. And I will reserve the rest of the report for after the public hearing. Any questions? Yes.
How are you defining permanent full-time?
Permanent full-time use would be anything over 90 days. 90 consecutive days. That's how our land use bylaw draft is defining it with regard to short-term rentals. Anything over.
But that's how we're defining it within a recreational facility?
For permanent.
Yeah.
Long-term leasing is a stay for 90 consecutive days or more.
On any site anywhere?
Yes.
And then they just
Then they would be.
leave for a day and then they're back for 90 in the same spot?
Mechanism as stated to like enforce that. So if they leave for a day and come back, that would be considered a short-term lease, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay. We'll type there.
Yeah.
Is anyone in favor of the bylaw that wishes to speak? Is anyone in favor of the bylaw that wishes to speak? Should do that with mic on. Anyone opposed to the bylaw that wishes to speak? And any person deemed affected who wishes to be heard? As I see none, I will declare that the public hearing is closed. Move on to the next public hearing. We're have to read the exact same thing. Yeah. Over again.
Kind of.
Kind of. So a public hearing is open and is held pursuant to sections 216.4, 606, 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended. Purpose of bylaw 11, 2025 is to amend the land use bylaw 22, 2007 by amending the land use district map by redistricting 16.37 hectares, 40.45 acres of the subject parcel of land at SW1-73-6-W5M from RR1 Recreation Facility and Resort District to RR2 Recreation Facility and Resort District. No, as shown on the sketch plan marked as Schedule A and forming part of this bylaw. Notice of the hearing was given in writing to the applicant and the assessed landowner or landowners and the planning and development officer. Notice of the hearing was advertised on the town's website from April 16th, 2025 to May 6th, 2025. Presentations are to be brief and to the point. Order of hearing will be planning and development officer, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, and any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard.
The purpose of this report is for council to hold the required public hearing for bylaw 11, 2025. I don't know why that might make a difference, yeah. So again, this is running concurrently to the regulatory amendment of adding the RR2 district. So this would be to rezone the land should bylaw 10, 2025 receive second and third reading. So this is to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw by redistricting the aforementioned property of Southwest 173-6 west to the 5th from RR1 district to RR2. In accordance with section 692 of the Municipal Government Act, the town council must give bylaw 11, 2025 first reading and hold the required public hearing prior to passing a resolution. First reading was given on April 15th, 2025, and the public hearing was scheduled for May 6, 2025. The subject site is within the regional commercial designation of the municipal development plan, and as such, an amendment is not required. The lands were redistricted in 2021 under bylaw 9, 2021 from airport to regional commercial. The airport area master plan does note that this parcel of land is designated for future development, although it does not fall within their planning documents. This application was referred to the Slave Lake Airport as an adjacent landowner, and the manager indicated they had no concerns and were in favor of the amendment and future development. In regards to the intermunicipal development plan, the subject site maintains a recreation, parks, and schools designation in the IDP, and as such, an amendment is not required. The subject site is not within the downtown and Main Street area structure plan, and as such, an amendment is not required. And the subject site maintains an RR1 recreation facility and resort districting, and as such, an amendment is required. So the owners of Big Fish Bay, as stated, have purchased these lands, and they wish to expand their recreational resort into these new lands with cabins being the main focal point. They have the office and recreation facility also proposed. The owners of Big Fish Bay have submitted an application to amend the land use bylaw by adding a new section 115A Recreation Facility and Resort District. This amendment is intended to support their cabin development plans aligned with their long-term business objectives. This application is running concurrently to the regulatory amendment as mentioned. Subject lands are currently zoned Recreation Facility and Resort District RR1. Under the existing RR1 regulations, cabin development is limited by a ratio tied to the number of campsite stalls, and they have reached the maximal allowable cabin density within their leased areas unless additional campground stalls are constructed. The RR1 district concurrently permits, a maximum of 10% of the total campsite and cabin count to be designated as rental cabins, with the remaining 90% required to be RV tent sites. Presently, Big Fish Bay, as stated, has constructed 52 cabins, one pre-existing 3-unit sleeper, and 3 other existing cabins, bringing their total to 58 cabin units. With 585 campsites on the parcel, this meets the maximum density allowed. Notice of the public hearing was advertised on the town's website and social media for a period of 3 weeks. As well as notice was given to adjacent landowners. The department received 1 inquiry from the manager of the Slave Lake Airport asking for information. And once provided with details, he indicated he was in favor and had no concerns. To date, no other communications have been received by the department either for or against the proposed changes. This is a summary of exactly what I just said in the last report, so I will leave it to any questions.
Questions from council? Counselor Adams.
All right, oh, this is still public hearing. Right,
You can,
I'm good.
no, you can ask questions.
You can ask questions.
Now's the time
Public
for
hearing.
rebuttal.
Well, this is the rebuttal time?
You are allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, you are. I don't.
Okay, I know, that's crazy. Okay, and so I guess my questions on this would come around. How does this zoning change and the zoning request change, compare to other communities that have the same situation?
So when we were initially doing our research of developing these draft regulations, we reached out to a couple communities that have resort type developments that are similar to Big Fish Bay. And
In the community or outside the community?
they would be within a municipality.
Okay.
So, and then we did speak with the municipality directly and asked what their experience was with those types of resort type developments. And they did indicate that they did have concerns, and most of their concerns were along morphing into this full-time year-round type of community, and them not having proper infrastructure in place to support that, not having the mechanism to go in and then enforce this year-round type of stuff. So a lot of those were bare land condo type, where the landowners owned the land, it wasn't leased. So the municipality at the time approved that bare land subdivision. So this is specifically not, we're not looking at a subdivision currently right now, so it wouldn't be something where the land, where people own the individual lots themselves. It's all gonna be owned by one owner.
Right.
Yes,
But then,
that's the biggest difference between this development and what we've seen out in other places.
Following along this lines of having a residential community, for lack of a better term, if we're talking 90 days, skip a day, 90 days, skip a day, or even if it is consistently used by different people, how does that impact with the NEF regulation, the AZR that we're working on? Is there any potential conflicts in the future for this one that we're developing? And are we putting ourselves in a conflict here by approving this prior to having an AZR in place?
So with regards to the airport zoning regulations that you're speaking to, we currently, it was worked on in the previous, before my time with the town. It has not been looked at since 2012. The department will go forward with looking at this, but we do have practices in place where we already refer any applications within a radius of the airport to NAV Canada, Transport Canada, Alberta Highways. We do that already, even though we don't have to. So part of the AZR, the airport zoning regulations, is to look at the heights of not only buildings, but of trees or other types of development around that area. And those regulations currently, the airport manages their lands, but lands around it is where the AZR would. So this development could have to amend some things to the AZR when it does come into effect. But their heights should be well within, because they're not building higher than 36 feet right now, which is already below the other that's development standard.
So then how does it come in with the noise?
So I earlier provided you guys with the noise exposure projection contours, that it comes straight out of the airport area structure plan that they just did, or their master plan that they just did in 2024. And if you look at the map, you can see that this proposed 40 acres, I would say maybe 1/3 of it or less falls under the noise exposure area of 25, which is the lowest noise exposure area on this map, with minor. If you look over, a larger majority of the current development of Big Fish Bay is exposed at the same rate than this 40 acres would be. Yeah.
Which isn't ideal. Because this is where my concern is, if we're taking
Yeah.
a place and we're encouraging long-term over the year-round use, because originally Big Fish Bay, or what it was called in the past, I guess, was intended only for summer use. It was never intended for consistent long-term use. Now that we have increased that usage, we are now looking at expanding that development even further. and putting it even closer to the airport. This is where my concern runs in, is that was never the intent for the area being that close to the airport. So I feel we need to make sure that our AZRs are in compliance and that we're going to meet those requirements prior to us passing this and then hopefully fixing it in the future. But because you can't ask them to change what their development is or whatever it is to fall under the new AZR after they've already done their developments.
A large majority of that, the development around the airport would be affected by an AZR.
Oh, I'm just.
I just want to point out that the noise, exposure projections here, the 25 is for few to little complaints is the way that it's laid out in the airport master plan. And that it would have the least amount of impact, and noise projections are about mitigating the airport having to change their own operations to accommodate development around the airport, if I'm being clear. So it's in an effort to stop that from happening. So that less flights, them having to change their available landing times and such. And I understand that AZRs are.
Well, my concern
Yeah.
also around this is with us becoming more and more of a hub for firefighting, we've got our mega vac units, all that kind of stuff. It's mainly the firefighting stuff that we're concerned with. We're already at our maximum capacity as far as existing aircraft being able to come in there at the current NEF mapping here. But the bigger planes coming in, when we extend that airport, or if we extend that airport, that NEF gets bigger, right? So now we're knowingly putting in a residential. It's one thing for the residential areas that were established in 1960. There's not much we can do about that. But for ones that we're developing in and considering approving, when we know that this is something that's coming down the pipeline, I think might be a mistake. Yeah.
Any other questions from council? Comments on this one? Okay, so that being said, I will ask for those in favor of the bylaw who wish to speak. I see none. Those opposed to the bylaw who wish to speak. And any person who deems to be affected who wishes to be heard. As I see none, I will declare the public hearing closed. And we will move into the new business arising from bylaws. So we'll start with bylaw 10, 2025. It's the same report in the package.
That, the planning department acknowledges. Sorry, the planning department acknowledges, the pressure for additional short-term rental options. We remain committed to ensuring that such development proceeds in a thoughtful and regulated and community-minded manner. The RR2 district provides a pathway to do just that, supporting growth while protecting the integrity of the community. And the department recommends that council give bylaw 10, 2025 second and third reading. If there's any questions.
Councillor Grumman.
No question, but I will move that bylaw number 10, 2025 to amend the land use bylaw number 22-2007 to add section 115A recreation facility and resort district RR2 receives second reading.
There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Councillor Adams.
Again, I believe this is something we should be seriously looking at, not approving at this time. I'd rather see it tabled. I like the idea behind this, and the expansion that they're looking at doing is honestly pretty exciting for the area. But I do caution that we don't jump ahead on this. I'd much rather see us move forward with the AZR, get that commitment from the airport commission as to what the future is and what they're doing, because I know they're looking into what the forestry is wanting to expand to, so that we're not putting the cart before the horse.
Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Grumman.
Councillor Adams, when you say that, do you understand that we could be, like, that could be many years down the road, right? Is that kind of the time frame that you're thinking of? Because to get all these set in stone answers that you're thinking of, these are years in the making type of situations here. So I'm just curious if that weighs on you.
Yeah, obviously it does, but I feel that the reason it's been years in the making here is we started going down this path. And then somewhere, 2012, you said, it dropped off the table. We need to bring this to the forefront again. And I think now that it has been brought up, we can push this a little harder down the road. I'd like us to see the answers we're going to get from forestry and from the airport commission itself, I think is a lot quicker than that. Just to find out, because that's a meeting that's already moving down the blocks there to try and get it aligned. But as far as the actual AZR coming into effect, I understand we got to get 3 levels of government to line up and agree on what those are and what those regulations are and register. But my understanding is, from what I've read on other places that have put through the AZRs, the delay is not necessarily in developing your AZR. The delay is registering that AZR. So
Okay.
we can have that figured, know what we're doing, and have it going through the line, and then just adhere to that until it actually is approved and in there. But I think we'd be remiss if we don't at least ask the question what forestry's plans are
Well,
and our plans for an airport.
just, I guess, in a rebuttal to that, so I sit on the airport commission with you as well, so I think 3 of us at this table currently are aware, I'm pointing to you, are aware of kind of what is going on within the airport. I know we have, a different few future talks and some different ideas coming up, but I don't necessarily feel like what they are proposing is really hindering our future discussions that we're having as an airport. I understand your concerns around the AZR, but I think where I'm struggling with is, as Joanne has mentioned, anybody who is building or the things that they're doing in there are going to be sent to NAV Canada. My understanding so far from being on the Airport Commission is that the only overarching requirement or concern overall would be height requirements. So if those height requirements are already laid out in here, I don't really know what new news the AZR is going to bring at this point, is kind of where I'm finding myself, unless I'm missing a key piece of information there.
The part I'm more concerned about is noise. When you get
Okay.
into the 30 zone, that's where the trouble is. As it is right now, we're not on that edge of the 30. It just barely touches the property line. But that's with existing airplane size, I guess. If we extend that runway any further, if we move it towards 7th Street, or if we move it further, say into the lake, whatever the case may be, if that extension happens and they bring in larger aircraft, that 30 zone is the one that's going to extend out. Not only does that hamper our existing residentials within the community, which we'll see it shift more out and down on the east end, but on the west end, we're willing to put in these areas knowing that that might extend out, I think is wrong. It's one thing when we're already established. It's one thing for the RR1 section that's being leased that's already established if we expand that N30 zone. But to knowingly allow these builds when we don't know is the thing, I guess, is what I'm getting at, if that's going to be a 30 zone.
Okay, everyone has good points, but the part we're all missing is we own that land and we said there's no use for the airport and no one wanted it. So we sold it to these group of people under the impression that it doesn't have to be airport related and you could do whatever you want if you could fit something within the zoning. So if we were that far thinking ahead, we should not have sold this to a public member, and then now we hinder them and say you cannot develop this because we might do something at an airport one day. Like we could have had that conversation before we all voted to sell it a year and a half or 2 years ago or whatever it was. My dates are bad, but I don't think it's very fair to sell it and say there's no use for the airport and then say, well, hold on, we might have too loud of planes one day. And that being said, we might have too loud of planes one day, but there's also discussion at the airport that we should move the airport. So like that's
Exactly.
10 years down the road. Like we can't make these people wait for the commission to decide that. And I thought we already decided when we said we're done with this piece of property, let's sell it to the general public and maybe it'll be a pickleball court one day. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I just want to clarify that the lands are currently zoned as recreational resort and facility RR1. So they already have a recreational resort designation to them. The only difference really between the two is the density of the cabins and road widths and things like that, that increase. the
And
infrastructure.
requiring offsite levies to protect our infrastructure.
Yes, that as well. So
Counselor Adams, go ahead.
It was longer, it was before this, I was on council that we decided to sell that. It wasn't 1 or 2 years ago. So it was a while back. The selling it is one thing that we make a decision on. We don't make a decision or a guarantee that the development can happen, any development can happen. I understand it's RR1, I get that. The RR2 though increases that density and changes that use from being a holiday trailer pulled in and a holiday trailer pulled out to we have a cabin, you're there 90 days, less a day. So that's where my concern is, but no, you bring up a very good point. I'll concede on the fact that it is currently RR1. Okay, to change gears, I guess, so I'm not harping on the airport piece. You had mentioned in there that there's a piece where we've allowed for garbage pickup at each site, or is it going to be like?
we're requiring a specific garbage containment area that is large enough for the trucks to go in, pick up the larger dumpsters and dump. Some of the things that are happening currently are the roads are too narrow. There's not enough turnaround space for larger like vehicles like garbage trucks or emergency vehicles that might need to go into the campsite. So we've required larger roads, designated spaces where these things are happening. And I'll just also note that before any development can actually happen, there's 2 more steps that need to happen. And one of those would be an outline plan of the design concept to come to council for approval.
And my next question will revolve around, how does this compare to our RMHP zoning? And how is this different than a mobile home park as opposed to like a cabin park?
So the RMHP zoning operates so each individual person is noted on the property within the RMHP. I know they don't own the land, it's a trailer park, but they are noted and they pay property taxes on those individual sites within the RMHP. With this, it's one landowner, it's assessed as one parcel of land. The development that happens on it is included in the assessment. It's not individual properties that are going to be assessed, would be the biggest difference in between the RMHP.
What's the
And-
requirement
and the-
difference on the
the type-
permits and that stuff?
Pardon me, the type of development and stuff that could happen. So this specific district is requiring specific road widths to be put in place. And that 2-way traffic can be maintained, that there's designated parking for visitors so that there is no roadside parking. We're trying to mitigate some of the effects that could come into place should it morph into like a year-round resort, which is the intent, I believe, to have the cabins operate year-round for short-term stays.
My concern is, and I don't know if you can alleviate this, and I don't know if council has an idea. My concern is turns into a mobile home park, for lack of a better term, that has year-round living when it's not designed to sustain year-round living. It is meant for in and out use. But what is there other than what you had already stipulated, I guess?
So that's part of the reason why we're requiring these very specific things with regards to infrastructure, wider roads, the ability to accommodate those larger vehicles. We're also asking for a different design standard for the utilities when that park comes forward to be built so that they're a little bit deeper. They're not as shallow as they would be in that recreational type resort. We are trying to mitigate as many things as we can now, should it change its purpose 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call to question those in favor. That is carried. Counselor Hughes,
I move that bylaw number 10-2025 to amend the land use bylaw number 22-2007 to add section 115A recreation facility in resort district RR2 receives 3rd reading.
Motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. And that is carried. So then we'll move on to the second report for bylaw 11/2025.
So again, the report is what was presented. The report is what was presented during the public hearing. The new RR2 district provides clearer set of rules in support of growth while protecting character of the community. And these regulations, with these regulations in place, the planning department does not believe the RR2 zoning will negatively affect nearby areas. The town's current infrastructure can support additional cabins, as confirmed by the town's engineer. And the new rules help manage things like extra traffic, snow storage, emergency access if the area becomes busier over time. As such, the department recommends that council give bylaw 11/2025 the required readings as presented.
Motion, Counselor Hughes.
I move that bylaw number 11-2025 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22-2007 by redistricting 16.37 hectares, 40.45 acres of the subject parcel of land at Southwest 1-73-6 west of the 5th from RR1 Recreation Facility and Resort District to RR2 Recreation Facility and Resort District, as shown on the attached sketch plan marked as Schedule A and forming part of this bylaw, be given second reading.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. All those opposed, and that's carried.
Sure.
Counselor Gramlich.
Again. I move that bylaw number 11-2025 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw number 22-2007 by redistricting 16.37 hectares of the subject parcel of land at Southwest 1-73-6 west of the 5 from RR1 Recreation Facility and Resort District to RR2 Recreation Facility and Resort District, as shown on the attached sketch plan marked Schedule A and forming part of this bylaw, be given third reading.
How many acres was that?
Very long. Any further discussion with council? Call to question, those in favor. All those opposed, and that is carried. Thank you, Joanna. So now we're going to jump back into our delegations, and we have the Town of Slave Lake and MD of Lesser Slave River Policing Review.
Everyone, are you ready for us to get started?
Okay, can you make them big?
I will try to share my screen here, but just before we get started here, just quick introductions for myself and my colleagues here. I'm Nathan Martins, I'm a manager with MNP. The three of us here this evening work with MNP's community safety and wellbeing practice. So we work with police services and municipalities and provincial government partners across the country, looking at community safety, working with community safety topics and organizations, and doing studies like these and other interesting things across the policing and community safety landscape. I'm joined by my colleague Shartina Nahorniak here as well, who's a senior consultant with our team, and Caitlin Brown, who's a senior manager with our team. I'm going to share my screen here with a presentation, and Shartina will start us off just walking through some of the highlights and project background, and then I'll jump in as well with some of the findings and recommendations coming out of it as well. Just before we get going here, can we see the cover slide coming through on your end? Good.
Yep, that looks good. You can continue.
Great, thank you. Shartina.
Thanks, Nathan. All right, so welcome to our presentation of the policing review. So our agenda for today is we're just going to go over a project overview, the current state of public safety in the town of Slave Lake and MD of Lesser Slave River, and alternative service delivery models that we explored, as well as the recommendations, and then time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So just as an overview of the project here, the town of Slave Lake and MD of Lesser Slave River commissioned a comprehensive review of the current state of policing in the town at MD to ensure that the community receives effective and efficient policing services to meet the needs of residents. So the project objectives here focused on researching and recommending public safety models, the appropriate staffing and resource allocations, identifying any sort of constraints, and then recommending policing and non-policing strategies to support overall community safety. So the review was conducted in 4 phases. Phase 1 included the collection of qualitative and quantitative data. Phase 2 included current state assessment with the review of data, conducting stakeholder engagement interviews and focus groups, and gathering community feedback through a public survey, and then analyzing all of the findings to inform Phase 3 recommendations for future opportunities to enhance safety and efficiency of policing services in the town and MD. And then Phase 4 concluded with the development of a final report and final presentation to council, which brings us here today. Next, we're going to look at the current state of policing in the town of Slave Lake and MD of Lesser Slave River. So RCMP services in the town of Slave Lake and MD include 17 sworn officers, and the RCMP operate under a post model where both municipal officers and provincial officers are based out of the same detachment and serve both communities. And the town also utilizes 1 community peace officer, and the MD utilizes 2 community peace officers to enhance safety and community well-being. In terms of the crime severity index, both the municipal rate for the town of Slave Lake and the provincial rate for the MD of Lesser Slave River are above the Alberta average. The town of Slave Lake is consistently higher, while the MD maintained a lower CSI and even reported a lower CSI than the provincial average over several years. And as shown on this slide, provincial traffic occurrences are the leading occurrence type and have increased significantly over 5 years. The town of Slave Lake's population has remained relatively stable, so this may indicate that there's just been more vigilant traffic patrols from law enforcement in the community. So with provincial traffic occurrences, they're followed by mischief, assault, and provincial statutes, and then the Liquor Act as the top 5 occurrences within the town for 2019 to 2023. And when we looked at officer workload, the metrics that are provided in this table on the slide demonstrate the reported workload for the Slave Lake detachment officers, specifically for the criminal code incidents and regular member metrics. And this describes the proportion of criminal code incidents to the number of police officers. And although these metrics are reported separately for Slave Lake municipal and Slave Lake provincial detachments, in practice, operating through that post model, officers from both detachments may be responding to calls in each other's jurisdictions, so they often share that workload. So when we compare these stats to the Alberta average, the officers in the Slave Lake municipal and provincial detachments experience significantly higher incidents per officer, which is compounded in the MD of Lesser Slave River, which has considerably lower officer to population ratio. So this shows that there is some understaffing that is occurring within both the town and MD. And next, I'll pass it off to Nathan for the review of the alternative service delivery models.
Thanks, Shartina. So through the review, we identified several alternative service delivery models for consideration and have outlined some information in the report. We'll give you a high-level overview here, but really encourage you, if you get a chance, to take a look at the report, because there's a lot more detail on the current state, really diving into some of the findings that coming out of those conversations we had with folks and the survey data. And then also moving into these alternative service delivery models that we'll be discussing here. So there's 3 different model options that we've laid out here, and then some variations of them that we'll describe here within as well. So the first option is looking at expanding the CPO program. The role of the CPOs is really integral in terms of enhancing public safety, and we would see a lot of benefits to expanding that program in order to provide better coverage. And one of the key words that I would emphasize here is consistency, and consistency really enables better collaboration with your RCMP partners and being able to have better coverage so that folks know that they can better divert calls to the peace officers and the safety officers, and really balance out some of the workload that the RCMP are carrying right now, enable more of that to be shifted over to the peace officers. So part of this that we discussed as well is looking at enhancing authorities for peace officers, the community safety officers, and enabling them to respond to more types of calls. So this could be done in partnership with the RCMP. There's precedents in other locations and a process to go about that, where there's specific additional authorities that can be granted to them, so that there's more capacity for certain items that are low severity, low risk to officers that can be responded to by peace officers, to allow the RCMP to focus on more the violent crime and the types of things that you really want police focused on with their time. So we've laid out a few different options for this, because we understand obviously budget is a huge consideration in all of these conversations. And we weren't in our review, we weren't looking at your budget or considering what was available. We were just looking at the policing side in terms of what would we suggest or present as options for consideration. So we've laid out a few different potential options as far as coverage. You'll see them here on the screen, and then also described a little bit more in the report as well. But the main thing I would emphasize is that the benefits come from consistency. So establishing consistent hours of operation, whether it's 9 to 5, whether it's a extended period like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then looking at, was it going to be a 1 officer coverage situation, 2 officers at a time? And then we've laid out what that would require in terms of staffing. So whether 3 or 4 or 6 positions to cover those different scenarios for consideration. And then to allow coverage for leaves and time off and training and those types of things been considered as well in those numbers that you see. So this provides just a sample as far as costing, assuming a basis of 4 FTE for officers, so a director and 3 peace officers, so 4 members in this scenario. As we laid out previously, there's other options for consideration as well, and this doesn't consider the costs that you're already paying as part of your community safety officer program, but just gives a sense of what some of the financial implications could be for this program. The second model that we'd laid out is going through applying to have additional RCMP enhanced positions. So enhanced positions is where you can request from the Ministry of Public Safety and Emergency Services to have additional RCMP officers paid for by the town or the MD or a combination of both, operating out of the detachment at your expense. So paying for additional members. So that's a request that would be considered by the ministry, and then if approved and if staffing's available, then they would fill those, and then you'd be charged for those. In this case, for the enhanced position program, you'd be charged the full cost for those positions, so there's no offsetting. Typically, if whether there's depending on the size of a town, for example, you'd have your 70-30 cost share or a 90-10 cost share. If you're looking at enhanced positions, you wouldn't have any cost sharing. It would be a full load going to the community. So in terms of some of the estimated costs associated with that, you're looking at close to $250,000 likely per officer if you were to go the enhanced officer position route. So noticing just in comparison to the CSO program, the CPOs, you see quite a difference in terms of the costs, which leads to more coverage under a CPO model for dollars spent. Another option which we had considered as part of this is the Alberta Sheriffs. This is really an emerging opportunity, and the details aren't entirely clear as far as how this would be laid out, as there isn't really a model jurisdiction to look to in terms of how this would be done. But the province has indicated that they're open to considering the Alberta Sheriffs as a contract partner, and looking to contracting with the partner as a potential alternative to the previous 2 models. So in the report, we've laid out some of the key differences between these in terms of the legislation. There's some different nuances in terms of who's the employer. So RCMP are federal employees falling under the RCMP Act, Alberta Sheriffs falling under provincial jurisdiction as contract with the province, and CPOs would be municipal employees and subject to the Peace Officer Act. And then in terms of what statutes are enforceable, there's some differences as well, but a lot of similarities between the sheriffs and peace officers, and then obviously for RCMP officers, full capability of enforcing all statutes. We've laid out some recommendations in the report for consideration. These are really, to be balanced in terms of what makes sense from your perspectives, and I think it's, these are really for consideration. But the first recommendation is, of the previous models, we do recommend increasing your community peace officer complement. You'd seen in some of the previous numbers that we do feel there is some understaffing in terms of the police services that are in place right now. And the community peace officer expansion would help to address this by giving you an opportunity to partner with the RCMP and be able to divert some of the workload that the RCMP is currently undertaking, and be able to free up those officers to be more responsive and more proactive in their work than they already are. And this would also enable a more proactive presence in the community as well, from being able to direct from the town's priorities as well as your employees in the community too. So more control versus the RCMP route as well under the Peace Officer program. The second recommendation we'd provided is to work with the RCMP to provide those peace officers with enhanced authorities. So that's really looking at increasing the scope of what types of statutes can be enforced by the peace officers. So you'll see under the potential benefits there that by enhancing their authorities, that CPOs could handle up to 58% of RCMP calls versus the 35% with the base authority. So we had done, based on the town of Slave Lake's occurrences, which we looked at in the current state portion of the report, we'd identified which of those could potentially be responded to by peace officers. Obviously, we're not proposing 24/7 coverage by the peace officers, so it wouldn't be all of those occurrences responded to by the peace officers, but they would have the capability that they could respond to that portion. So really a significant percentage of the current workload, which could be shared between the peace officers and the RCMP. And as part of that too, we'd really recommend, maintaining a focus on collaboration. I think, we, in our conversations, we'd seen some collaboration already ongoing. And I think as you expand a peace officer program, this would enable more collaboration to build and really to be most effective. Collaboration is key, just to really ensure that everyone's taking the right types of calls and that they're focusing where it matters and where it's going to have the biggest impact. Given that across all the metrics that we had seen, especially in the MD, that there was a shortfall compared to provincial averages on the RCMP staffing, we would suggest that both the town and the MD advocate for one additional RCMP officer to be added to the provincial complement at the Slave Lake detachment. So I think, it would be great if you could get more on the town side as well, but I think there's a really strong case on the MD side, and that would benefit both jurisdictions just under the post model, being able to share resources between both the MD and the town. And when really looking across both on the population officers to population side, on the incidents per officer side of things, well above provincial averages. So we'd suggest the advocacy route here. From a cost effectiveness standpoint, it doesn't make sense to go and pay the full rate yourself to add an RCMP officer, but I think advocacy is a good route to see if that's can be considered by the province as well going forward. We heard lots about some of the challenges around homelessness and unhoused folks, and some of the past experiences around the homeless shelter and some of the ongoing challenges that have been experienced. And so You know, we'd recommend as well to continue to advocate for additional supports. I know there were some challenges around shelter services where there were a lack of supports, and I think, you know, the inability to provide adequate resources, you know, and that's not all on a municipality to provide those. Lots of those are provincial responsibilities. So advocacy is you know, a key role of the municipalities in that case to ensure that, you know, the province is aware, and to build a case for bolstering those resources and making sure that there's adequate resources that folks have a path out from where they are in an unhoused state. And then also we lay out some information on promoting volunteer community safety initiatives, really that community presence through initiatives like Citizens on Patrol and Rural Crime Watch. And then also on implementing crime prevention programs through environmental design strategies, and encouraging those practices to help deter crime through thoughtful environmental design. So with that, I'll just leave it open to questions here, and I'll stop sharing here, but if we need to throw it back up on the screen, do that as well. But just open it up if there are questions from folks on the work that we did or anything that we presented here.
Any questions from Councillor Adams?
Well, I don't think I have too many questions for you in the report. It's very thorough in what I've read out of it. It answers a lot of the questions. I think some of the questions I do have are more in line for administration and where that's going to go. So I don't know if this is the proper place for it, or if you want to talk about that later.
No, it would not be.
Another one? Okay. And yeah, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we appreciate the report presentation, and obviously there's a lot of information. We understand that when you prepare this report, it's not your job to handle budget considerations. I know when we read that they're recommending 3 CPO officers per jurisdiction, all councillors at this table have a mild panic attack when we start adding up the cost of wages plus supervisor. So that is not your role, to be clear, just to make clear to everyone else, to make it within our budget is recommendations overall on what we could do. With that said, council will be taking this report with the MD and working with the RCMP.
May read out later.
Yeah, see what we can do and go forward from there. Councillor Gramlich,
Make a motion to accept the report as information.
any further discussion? I'll question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks everyone. If there's further questions, feel free to reach out to us. Happy to continue the conversation.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
We are done. If someone would like to, Councillor Hughes,
Motion to adjourn.
further discussion, call to question those in favor. And that is carried.